Hello, and welcome to your long-awaited Dictionaries lecture, one of many. So dictionaries are an exciting new type of collection. We've already learned about a couple types of collections like strings or lists, but dictionaries are a little bit unique in that instead of having just multiple items and then using indices like 0, 1, 2, etc. to access the items in that collection, we have key value pairs. So dictionaries are not just collections of objects, they're collections of key value pairs. And this really helps us because it allows us to grab things a little more efficiently. Instead of using indices to grab an item from a collection, in dictionaries we say the key. So we'll say dictionary bracket key in order to grab a value, which means we don't have to remember where an item is in a dictionary, we just have to remember the key that goes with the value that we want. In Python, dictionaries look like this. We set them with curly brackets, and then we have a key, colon, the value associated with that key, a comma, and then we can add another key value pair, and we could add as many as we want to this collection. As I mentioned before, for dictionaries, instead of grabbing items using indices like 0, 1, 2, 3, we are going to go ahead and say the name of the dictionary, square brackets still, and then the name of the key that we want to grab the value from. So for instance, if I want to grab Carl from this dictionary, I need to figure out what is the key that goes with the value Carl. Well, it's the name. And so I'm going to say person dict bracket name, and that will grab me the value associated with the key name, which is Carl. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create that dictionary. I'm going to say person dict. So this is basically a dictionary representing like things about a person. I'm going to say name is Carl. And so notice that I've created a key value pair. Then I'm going to put a comma, and then I can create another key value pair. So I'm going to say age is 21, comma, so another key value pair. I'm going to say major, there we go, is electrical engineering, and then I'm going to put a comma because I've created another key value pair, and then finally I'm going to say courses, and then I'm going to put a list, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this in. This is going to be a list of all of the course codes for what the student is currently taking. All right, so you can see that a dictionary, like a list, can have values that are of completely different types. Here we have values that are strings, we have values that are numbers, and we have values that are another collection, a list. And you can see that these key value pairs can help us organize all of the information in this dictionary. Now let's go ahead and look at indexing. So say I want to grab whatever Carl, this person for person dict, what his major is. So I'm going to say person dict, square brackets, and then instead of a number like 0, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go ahead and say major because I want to grab this person's major. So I can go ahead and print this out if I want to. And let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to say Python 3 dictionaries 22 underscore blank. There we go. Okay, so this is printing out electrical engineering. Now, if I wanted to grab one of this person's courses, I would say, and I'm just going to print this out, print person dict bracket. I'm going to grab the key, or excuse me, the values from the key course. And this is going to be a list, so I'm going to actually comment this out. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you can see that it'll grab me all of his courses. Say I want to only grab one of them. I could, for instance, try and grab CPSC 392 by just saying from that list that you grabbed for me, grab me the item at index 0. So I can go ahead and run this, and when we do that, you can see it grabbed me just the item at index 0, which is the class CPSC 392. We can also, if we need to, store these in a variable. So instead of just printing it out, we could store that course by saying person dict bracket course bracket 0 and store that in the variable x. Now, say that we want to add something to this dictionary. We can do that by saying the name of the dictionary that we want to add something to, square brackets, the key that we would like to add. So in this case, I'm going to add his school ID number. And then we're going to say equals to. So this is saying this is the key that I want to add. And what's going to be on the right-hand side is the value that I want associated with that key. So I'm going to, for instance, in this case, say 0022989945. So let's print person dict. Beautiful. So when we run this, this should go ahead and leave the dictionary, but add a key value pair, item num, and then this ID number. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see now that our dictionary has all of the keys it had before, all the key value pairs, but now it has a new one, ID num, and the actual ID number for Carl. We can also overwrite or reassign items. So for instance, say it's a new semester and Carl is now taking new classes. Similarly to how we added an item, we can overwrite an item. So let's say person dict square bracket. So when we want to overwrite an item, it looks actually the same as adding a new one. The only difference is that we're going to put a key here that already exists. So for instance, here we're going to say course, and this already exists, right? It's this list of courses. We're going to basically say, set that equal to his new courses. That shouldn't have an S there. And this is going to overwrite what the value was for course previously. Now these two things look the same, but they're slightly different. One is adding a key value pair that didn't exist, and one is changing the value for a key value pair that already did exist. So when we run this, we can print person dict. Run this, you can see that now his courses have changed. All right, let's talk about some dictionary methods that might be helpful to you. So remember that dictionaries have a bunch of key value pairs. And so one thing that we might want to have access to is a list of all the keys in that dictionary. We can grab something like this by using the name of the dictionary .keys with parentheses, and this will go ahead and grab us all of the keys from the dictionary. In this case, it would be name, age, major, and courses. We can then use this to, for instance, loop through. We could say for K in person dict.keys, print K. Now, similarly, instead of looping through the keys in a dictionary, we might want to loop through the values. So in that case, it would be Carl, 21, electrical engineering, and this list of courses. Similarly to with .keys, we can use .values. For instance, we can say for V in person dict.values, print V, and this would go ahead and print through all of the values in our dictionary. Similarly, related to the last two, we can use .items. This will return a tuple, one for each key value pair, where the key is the first item in the tuple and the value is the second item in the tuple. So for instance, we could say for K, V, so this is essentially like a multiple assignment, for K, V in person dict.items, print the key and then the value. So again, we have keys to get the keys, values to get the values, and items to get tuples of the key value pairs. Now, last but not least, the last method we're going to talk about for dictionaries, although there are more that exist, is the .get method. And this is going to be incredibly useful. So the .get method is basically a way of asking a dictionary to grab a value from a specific key for you. So you can say n equals person dict.get and then the name of the key, in this case, name, that we want to grab from the dictionary. What's really special about .get though is it takes a second argument. This is the argument that says if that key doesn't exist in our dictionary already, here's the default value that we should use for that key value pair. This is really helpful because sometimes we want to grab some information from a dictionary, but we don't know if that key is going to be there, and if it isn't there, we want to add it with some default value. For instance, we can do this example with happy birthday. We can say person dict bracket age equals get person dict get their current age, and if they don't have a current age, add it and make it 18 and then add 1, right? That's what we do on birthdays. We grab our typical age or our current age and we add 1. This is basically saying if they have an age, grab it and add 1, otherwise make it 18 and then add 1 to it because it's their birthday. The other thing we could do is say we want to indicate that a person has got a new pet. Say person dict num pets, so the number of pets that they have, person dict.get num pets. So if they already have pets and we have a number of them, say 1 or 2, grab that and add 1 because they've gotten a new pet. However, if they didn't have a pet and therefore their dictionary did not have the numpets key, we're going to go ahead and set that key to 0, and then we're going to add 1 because, well, they are getting a pet currently. Let's go to Atom to see how all of these dictionary methods work. All right, so the first dictionary method we're going to try out is .keys. So we can say for K in person dict.keys, oops, there we go, .keys, print K. So for instance, when we do this, let's go ahead and run it, and actually let's comment all of this out. So we're going to go ahead and run this, and you can see that it'll loop through all of the keys in this dictionary and print them out one by one. Similarly, we can say for V in person dict.values, print V. So we can go ahead and run that, and you can see it'll print out the values. So we have here Carl 21 engineering, and then the list of courses Carl is taking. All right, and last but not least, we can say for K comma V in person dot items, which will return tuples, we can say print K, print V. So this is going to print the key and then the value for each of our items. And we'll go ahead and run this, and you can see that's exactly what it does. It prints name and then Carl, age and 21, major in electrical engineering, and course, and then the list of courses. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about .get. Remember, .get tries to get you the value associated with the key that is the first argument of the .get method. Now, we know that our dictionary does have the key name, so this should return to us Carl. And let's go ahead and run that, and we can see that's exactly what it does. Now, what if we asked it for a key that does not exist in our dictionary? For instance, best friend. So we know that our dictionary does not currently have a key called best friend, so we're expecting that this .get function is going to return to us the default value NA. So go ahead and save and run, and that's exactly what happened. It tried to look for the key best friend in person dict, but it couldn't find it, so it went ahead and returned to us the default value instead. Now, this is really useful if we want to grab something if it exists in a dictionary and otherwise add it to the dictionary. So for instance, let's say person dict bracket age, oops, there we go, equals, and this is like they had a birthday. So we're going to say person dict dot get age. So we're going to try and grab the value associated with the key age. And if they don't have an age currently recorded, let's make it 18. And then of course, in either case, we're going to add 1 because it's their birthday. This is really helpful because the .get function allows us to grab a value and change it if it already exists. Otherwise, it allows us to have a default value and then change it. And then all of this, regardless of what happens, is getting stored back in person dict age. So if it didn't exist, it's going to be created. If it did exist, we're just going to be changing it by adding 1 to indicate that they had a birthday. Let's go ahead and save this and print person dict. Beautiful. And so you can see, for instance, now that he's had a birthday, Carl's age is now 22 because we grabbed his current age, added 1, and stored that back in the dictionary. Let's try an example with the pets example. So we're going to say person dict bracket pets, and then we're going to say person dict, we're saying dictionary.get, and then the name of the key that we'd like to grab, which we're going to call num pets. And so if someone already has pets and has a num pets entry in their dictionary, we're going to go ahead and just say +1 because you got a new pet. If they had no pets and therefore didn't have a key associated with num pets, we're going to set the default value to be 0 because they had 0 pets. And then we're going to add 1 because, of course, this whole code is premised on the fact that this person is getting a pet. Let's go ahead and comment this out and then print out person dict. There we go. So we know currently that this dictionary does not have a key num pets. So we're expecting that when we run this, it is going to look for num pets, not find it, make it the default value 0, and then add 1 and store that all back in. Oh, and this should be num pets. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and run that. And you can see that's exactly what happened. We didn't have a numpats entry, but we went ahead and created one, made it 0, added 1, and then stored it back in numpats. All right, let's go ahead and play around with some dictionaries now. So we've done a lot of things in the past in our class that actually might have been way more simple if we knew about dictionaries. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this very long string, which is the entire first chapter of the book Pride and Prejudice, and we are going to count the number of vowels in it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple things that we've maybe done similar things to before, but that are much easier now that we know about dictionaries. So this string is the first entire chapter of the book Pride and Prejudice. So I'm going to scroll all the way through it. You can see it is very long. And what we're going to do is we're going to count the number of each character in this string that exists. Now, before, if we wanted to do this, we would have a list that would be hard to keep track of, or we would have a variable for each character. But now that we have dictionaries, it's going to be a lot easier to keep track of how many of each character are in this string. So to start out, I'm going to create an empty dictionary. I'm going to call it characters. And the way we create an empty dictionary is with open and close curly brackets. Then I'm going to loop through the string. I'm going to say for char in this string. Oops, there we go. String, oh my gosh, string, there we go. I'm going to say characters, bracket, char. So this is saying from the characters dictionary, the key for whatever the character is. So if the character is capital C, then the key will be capital C. And here's where I'm going to use our beautiful .get function. I'm going to say characters .get char. So I'm trying to grab the value associated with the current character. So for instance, if it's capital C, I'm going to go into my characters dictionary, see if that key already exists. If it does, I'm just going to add 1, right? Because if it already exists and we've already seen capital C's before, I just want to increment this by 1 because now I've seen another capital C. However, if that character doesn't exist, which at the beginning none of them do, I'm going to set a default value of 0, and then I'm going to increment by 1 because obviously we have now seen one instance of this character. This beautifully simplistic code is going to allow us to make a dictionary where all of the keys are every unique character that we can see in this entire chapter, and the values are going to be the number of times we've seen that character. Okay, so once this for loop is done executing, we should have a very full dictionary with all of the characters as keys and their counts as values. So I'm going to say for char, count in characters dot items, right? So items will return a tuple with the key and the value. I'm going to say print, there we go, the character, and then plus what the character is, plus has, plus, and I'm going to turn the count into a string, and then plus, I'm going to say occurrences, there we go. So this is basically going to loop through all of the key value pairs as a tuple, and it's just going to print out a statement, the character blah 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 has this many occurrences. All right, so again, this would be very hard to do by hand. This is a very long chapter and there's so many characters, but we've made easy work of it with our dictionaries. All right, let's go ahead and run this. Oh, okay, you can see it printed out so many things, but you can see, for instance, that the uppercase letter I has 24 occurrences, the lowercase letter t has 278, there are 776 spaces, and etc. all through the entirety of the characters that are in this string. Something else we can use dictionaries for is, say we want to roll a bunch of dice, and we want to keep track of how many of each number that we roll. Well, I can say rolls equals and an empty dictionary. And then I'm going to simulate a bunch of rolls. I'm going to say for sim in range 0 to 1,000. So this is going to give us 1,000 starting at 0 up to 999, 1,000 simulations of a dice roll. So I'm going to say roll equals random.randint. We've used this before, 1, 6. And this is going to give us like basically a roll. And then we're going to say rolls, our dictionary, bracket role, so this is going to be a key with whatever the role was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, equals roles.get role, comma, 0 plus 1. So this is really similar to what we did with the characters. We're just counting the number of times that a certain role has come up. So for instance, if we try and get the value associated with the role 1, then it will just grab it if it exists and add 1, because we've now seen another 1 role. If it doesn't yet exist, so say we haven't rolled any 1s yet, then it's going to go ahead and set that default value to 0 and then add 1, assigning this all back to the key associated with our role. So once this for loop is done running, we'll basically have a simulation of 1,000 dice rolls. And what I can do, similarly to above, is say for num count in roles.items, again, this is going to be tuples of the key value pairs. We're going to print the number plus turning the number into a string plus was rolled plus a string of the count plus times. So this can print out for us basically like how many times each die was rolled. So let's go ahead and comment out this and then run. Okay, so you can see that in our simulation of 1,000 rolls, 3 was rolled 172 times, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 5, then 1, and you can see all of the counts associated with them on that right-hand side. Now, since we already know what the keys have to be for the different dice, what we could also do is say for D in range 1 to 7, because remember range is up to but not including, we could say, and let's just print this, we could do this. And then, so we're basically saying for each of these like different numbers that we could have rolled, say that number was rolled, and then instead of saying count, right, like we did above, we would just say rolls bracket D. And so when we do this, you can see it'll just run twice because basically the same information is printing out exactly 2 times. The only difference is that in this case, we printed them out in order from 1 to 6, whereas the other one, it just printed out whatever order it occurred in the dictionary. All right, last but not least, let's do an example with code names. So say I have this dictionary that represents my friends' real names and then the code names that I want to use for them because I want to talk about them secretly. So I'm going to have this message. It says Chelsea went with the mall with Tony and Greta. Barbara did not join them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace all of the names that I want to like codify with their code name. So for Chelsea, I'm going to use Wanda. For Tony, I'm going to use Pablo. And for Greta, I'm going to use Taylor. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the .replace string method to replace the name with their code name version in my message. So I'm going to say for name in code names, and when you loop through a dictionary, when you just say for variable in dictionary, it is automatically going to loop through the keys in that dictionary, and that's exactly what I want to do here. So I'm going to say for name and code names, message equals message dot replace the name, so their real name, Chelsea, Tony, or Greta, and their code name. Now, how would I grab someone's code name from this dictionary? Well, I would say the name of the dictionary, code names, square bracket, and then their actual name. So this basically says from this message, for all of the people, Chelsea, Tony, and Greta that I want to replace, I'm going to go ahead and replace every occurrence of that name with their code name. And then once I'm done doing that for all of the keys in my dictionary, I'm going to say print message. Beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and run this and we can say, okay, so now our message says Wanda went to the mall with Pablo and Taylor. Barbara did not join them. So as you can see, anytime we mention Chelsea, Tony, or Greta, this string now has their code name because we replaced their actual name with their code name, which we grabbed from the dictionary. However, obviously names like Barbara that were not in our code names dictionary did not get replaced because we don't need to replace them. I guess we don't care if Barbara knows that we're talking about her. All right. That is all I have for you guys. I will see you next time.